Welcome to the McEnulty Method. We are here with financial experts Frank McEnulty and Colin Sorrells, and they're going to share their expertise in all matters financial with us so we can be smarter about our money. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Now, we have an interesting topic today. We're looking at an article that shares four rules that they say are kind of unpopular about making money and how you can really increase your wealth. So I'd love it if we could talk about this today.
We'll
You
do
guys
it.
ready?
Let's
Ready.
do it.
All right. Now the first one, this guy who's does apparently following these rules, he's acquired an exorbitant amount of wealth. But his first rule is don't make big purchases unless you have 2 times its price saved up. So if you want to buy a $40,000 watch, you better have $80,000.
My theory would be if you're going to buy a 40,000 watch, you better have $8 million, right? Because that is truly something you don't need. I think, if you have, I think the article mentioned something about, trips and that, I'd agree with this one. If you're going to spend $5,000 on a big old trip to Europe for a couple weeks, you should probably have $10,000 saved up. So you're not spending all your savings. That's just not a good idea.
It's the difference between can I buy it and can I afford it, right? And I think a lot of times we think just because we have the money to buy it, oh, it's okay to buy it. But then things come up, right? You take that trip, Frank, to your point, if you drain all your savings on a trip and then something comes up, because something always comes up, the car breaks down, you break your finger, you got to go to the ER, something comes up, it's never a good idea to spend every dime you have at one time. So like Frank, I would also agree with this one, and 2 times as a general rule, I think.
You know what? I concur. I think that's we've started off with one that I think we can all agree on. Now let's go to number two. The second rule is don't buy anything you can lease. What do you guys think about that?
Well, this is where I disagree because I know that the examples they used were a house and a car. Well, let's start with the simple one. Let's start with the car first. Um, if you're only leasing cars, you have a car payment forever. Yeah. If you buy a car, yes, it's more expensive initially. And I know the jux of the article is that every dime he's saving from his monthly payment, he's using to buy real estate. But you got to make a lot of car lease payments to save enough money to buy a piece of real estate. It's that it's not the same thing. I like not having car payments. Getting excited here. Um, it so I've never leased a car because I always buy a car and drive it till the wheels fall off. So what if it's a 20-year car? You know, who are you trying to impress? Your people that you don't know, or your bank, or your bank account. You know, Colin, what do you think?
Oh, don't get too far into the impressed thing because we're coming up on that. But I I tend to agree with the car. Especially I think in this article he talked about he never did a lease for more than 24 months. And if you do these short-term leases, that's even more money he's spending, right? And so you have these probably some pretty substantial car payments that you're making. And Frank, to your point, at least from the car perspective, that money, if you go get we've talked about this before, go on Craigslist, some third party site, and get somebody's, hey, it's 10-year-old Toyota Corolla for $6,000. You're going to get at least 10 years out of it, probably, unless they've put 200,000 miles on it in 10 years. And, all that money, that you're spending on those car payments, you could be putting that towards your real estate. And that's a lot of money. I think, Frank, that was the point you were trying to make. That's a lot of money you could be investing instead of paying for these cars.
Yeah, and it's funny. I remember I read an article by a guy who said that he would go to Martha's Vineyard, and he said you could always spot, old East Coast money because they generally drove like a 10, 15-year-old station wagon. They had so much money, they didn't care about impressing anybody. So they just kept that same old car running.
And then, that also talks in the article about leasing a house instead of buying one, because then you can use your money to invest it in real estate to earn more money. That's true. But for the average person, the greatest way they're ever going to build their wealth is through owning their own home. I think that's probably the biggest wealth generator in the United States, and probably a lot of the rest of the world, where home ownership is a big thing. So yeah, I really don't agree with that, because no matter what else happens, you always got to have a place to live. And if you own your house, you don't have to worry about being kicked out or having your rent go up 20% a year, like's been happening in the last couple of years. Now the things I think you should lease, and maybe it's not lease but rent, are the things that you really have to have access to, but you're not going to use them that much. Boats, planes, the stuff that boats described as a hole in the ocean you throw money into. You got to have a boat. Find a place where you can rent the boat whenever you need it. It's that I agree with them, because it's not going up in value.
That's right. And it's funny. I've known several people that wanted to own a house, couldn't quite afford it. So but they would buy the house, and then they would rent out rooms in the house. So they could, by renting out rooms, they could make the payment. So it's kind of the opposite of what this guy's talking about. Anyway, let's move on to number 3. Don't spend to impress others.
Well, that goes without saying. We already sort of talked about that with the watch. I mean, and in LA these days, you got a $40,000 watch, you can't wear it because you go outside, you're going to get robbed.
I know.
It's really that simple. So, most people don't know what a $40,000 watch looks like, or even a $10,000 watch. And I'll tell you a funny story. A few years back, a friend of mine came back from the Philippines, and he gave me a Breitling watch. Cost him $50. I mean, it really didn't work the only thing that worked was the hour and minute hands. All the other little dials didn't really work, but it looked exactly the same.
Well, let's face it, nobody uses a watch to keep their, the time anymore. It's your phone. Right. So they're just for show. Number 4, only spend your passive income. Now, he does say that, he's talking about spending passive income only on things beyond basic living expenses.
Well, no, that's a great goal. But you can't just say, I'm only going to spend my passive income on things until you.
Well, you got to generate some real passive income first.
I mean, all of these things are great ideas, but like we always say, it depends on your circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
You're a young couple, you just got married, you're having kids. Well, you might have to spend most of your income for a while.
Well, let's talk about maybe some ways you can start to build up that passive income, because I think it is great advice, but the major hurdle is actually getting there. And so obviously, one easy way is, we've talked about investing before. You look at the expense ratio, but also look at, I think even some funds now will give dividends on investing. I can't name any off the top of my head, but individual stocks will, right? And that's passive income that you can get. This guy rents out, you know, Bill, to your point, if you have an extra room or something in your home, you rent it out. Frank, I don't know if there's any common ones that come to your mind.
Well, I think, you know, to build the passive income, number 5 on his list should be what we talk about, pay yourself first. Every month, you're going to put away so much money so you can build up to where you can actually have real passive income. I think, you know, that's the key, because basically everybody starts out at zero, at least everybody I know, starts out at zero. So you've got to do it yourself. So it's save money every month, make it part of your habits.
Yeah, that would be a good rule to come before the passive income one, because that way you might get enough money you can start to generate passive income, like Colin said.
There you go.
All right. So as I'm looking at it, I think that you pretty much agreed with everything except don't buy anything you can lease.
Pretty much.
Unless, of course, we're talking about boats, planes, and helicopters.
Right.
Don't lease, make friends.
Yeah.
That's even better. I think on that note, we will call an end to this edition of the McEnulty Method. Thank you guys for your insights, and this was fun.
Thanks, Bill.